what would you tell your 10-year-old son now? And what's our kids' lives going to look like when they're 20, 9 or 10 years from now?
God only knows.
One of the biggest things that I'm concerned about, right? Like, I love going to the gym, work out 4 or 5 days a week, and that makes my muscles strong. I feel like thinking and solving problems makes my brain strong. So I also wonder, like, I want to teach my kids at a young age how to use AI, but I also want them to learn in a more traditional way. Welcome to Built to Scale with me, your host, Anthony Mongeluzo, and I am here with a guest that is very familiar with the industry, very familiar with AI. As a matter of fact, over 28 years of experience in programming, architecture, generative AI, you name it. Ted Albe, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Anthony. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
So we talked about a lot of things. Obviously, you and I talked before this. Why don't you give the audience your background, maybe in 60 seconds, let's say, because obviously you have a pretty extensive background, and then we're going to get into AI and the business of AI.
Absolutely. I started out as a military contractor doing development, and 8 years into that, I realized that I was more into the solving of puzzles and the designing of these applications. And a lot of that time, the rest of my career has really been focused on enterprise architecture and solution architecture. Working for a number of different companies and a boatload of different industries, from finance to mortgages to retail to military contracting, like I mentioned before. But generative AI has been one of those things that kind of spun up in the last few years, and last 3-4 years have really been focused on that.
Now, before we really get on to what excites you, what scares you, all that kind of stuff. Sure. Explain to people the best you can. How would you tell someone how AI works? I hear a lot of different people explain it. I think software developers do it the best, but I have a super genius friend that works over at Google. He's high up there, and he tried to explain it to me about how humans learn and all that. And I'm going to be honest, Bill's a genius. Bill Stevenson, if you're listening, it was over my head. So any way to explain to folks how do you train it? How does it do what it does?
Well, I mean, AI really just focuses on the data you give it, right? It is a mechanism that was created. The AI itself is created so that it could learn from its examples and the information you give, right? So, and from there, you can also give it the ability to do tasks. Like, for instance, if you have something that you want to automate, it has information about that subject, and then maybe a connection to something that will the end result of that data it's analyzing might be to go and produce something like a document or create a ticket, or it's a way of automating and facilitating job functions within multiple industries. And I think every industry has their own little pocket of where AI really is specializing and can actually help improve their kind of processes and way they do business.
That's actually a good segue, because I want to get to the meat here. What excites you, what scares you, and I'll lead off here because just yesterday I heard from 2 friends of mine that I haven't talked to in probably a couple of years, and I knew there was a need. Right, a phone goes off. They weren't just calling to say hello. Both of them had connections with people that worked for large organizations, and both were getting laid off. So that's the thing that scares me the most about AI, as we look forward to, let's say, 2030, and you talked about tasks and getting things done, a lot of people are going to be in trouble. I mean, I think the driving industry is in trouble. I mean, Tesla really opened my eyes up with their FSD. So how about you? What excites you? What scares you? Where we're going with this?
Well, I mean, what excites me really is the prospects of being able to take, things that people are doing in their jobs currently and, automating it. So they're really focusing on more specific, meaningful work, right? It gives us the ability to kind of audit what we do and then identify those places, right? Instead of waiting for your business to sit there and say, oh, we've solved this problem, we're going to come in and we're going to take that away from you, because that's part of that, right? They're thinking that AI is going to come in and replace them 100%. And to me, that's the ability to be able to sit there and look at what I do on a daily basis, and then take the things that really are taking up a lot of my time and keep me away from the meaningful work that I need to get done, is where it really excites me. What really scares me, though, is I feel like that a lot of those jobs that are going to be, low-level entry jobs are going to be taken away.
Right.
And a lot of the workers that are coming, people who are coming out of universities and out of colleges now, they're not trained to know how to use AI, right? And we've already seen it within a generation where, a lot of people who come out of universities, there's not a lot of jobs for them even in the industry, or they're unwilling to adapt to something new. This is going to make it even harder for them to find a job. So, that kind of scares me, especially when I myself have a son who's 10. God only knows what it's going to look like in 10 years when he's ready to jump into the workforce.
Well, yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, my daughters are 9 and 11, and I joke, but I'm telling the truth that I believe that I don't know if they'll ever really learn how to drive a car. Robo taxis are in production, no steering wheel, no pedals. And, I look at the micro and macroeconomics of this, right? So we look at, hey, the low level jobs, right? Like AI and these robo taxis and robo cabs, Uber and Lyft is a giant industry. And think about all the attorneys and lawsuits and everything that generates from their business. That could be gone. The second thing is, recently Elon Musk was on a podcast, and he basically said, listen, if you are in medical school right now, get out. He said, because by 2027, his robots will be as good as the world-class physicians. And by 2030, or actually 2029, to quote him correctly, he said humans won't even want to go see a human doctor, surgeries and all that. So it's not just attacking those jobs. And I just wonder, what that's going to do to the economy. And, obviously no one knows, our crystal balls are broken, but I think it's going to move at a rapid pace. So what terrifies me is just that. Now, what excites me is I think that medical care is going to be better. I personally hate driving, right? I have a tech tank. I have a Tesla, so I probably drive less than most people. I mean, Tiger Woods should probably take one of those options.
Probably.
But that's the part that excites me. So, I mean, I think it could be really good. But, again, I'm going with Elon. Yeah, there's an 80% probability it'll be good. But, yeah, there's a 20% probability it could end the world. So I could tell you this, if I'm at the craps table, I usually get the 20%. So I hope Elon's 80% is righter.
I don't think we're anywhere near close to the Skynet level yet, right? We're still at this point where it's every business is trying to figure out exactly where AI fits in their organization. And unless you're one of the larger tech companies, or a vendor who's developing software that has to have AI in there, you're probably all at the same starting point, where they're trying to figure out what use cases are there. Yep. And, also what type of people they need to bring in to help build out this technology and identify what solutions and where it can be placed along the way, because not every business is just one-stop shop of, it's just marketing, right? It could be marketing and, HR and, auditing and tax and whatnot, right? So each one of these little parts of the company, have their own problems and things that AI can do, right, and help with. I agree with you, though, to take a step back, though, the auto industry is definitely going to be changed by AI. I am all for the self-driving cars. My wife likes going on long road trips, and if I can take a nap overnight while the car treks across country, I'm okay with that.
Oh, personally. I love it. I think driving's the biggest waste of time, but you're actually leading into a topic I wanted to talk about. So,
sure.
And this has been for the last couple of years, right? Every time you talk to a business owner, they have to say they use AI, right? It just makes them feel good, right? Everyone can talk, oh yeah, we're using AI. And then you find out they're actually just using like a free version of chat to maybe edit an email or update or review a proposal. So what do you think the real business hype is and the real use of AI that you're seeing? And I'll lead you off with a little bit of a softball.
Okay.
My business partner, I believe you talked to him, Bill Evans over at Liberty Fox. The claw bot that he's programmed is absolutely terrifying to me. It writes music. It helps him know when he's going to take his plane out. Bill has like 18 different color codes for his calendar. And while he doesn't let the AI edit his calendar, he gives his assistant access to talk to the AI. And the AI say, hey, Ant needs to talk to me about something extremely urgent Thursday at 3. AI will rip through the calendar and say, okay, well, you can move this, do this, and make all the suggestions. So I think that's a real business value. Bill said his Clawbot, in his estimation, does the work of a $70,000 to $90,000 a year full-time employee. And it probably costs him, if you take the music and the fun stuff that he lets it do,
Right.
probably about $1,500 a month. So what are you saying for real business cases, like real success stories here?
I think the real success stories are not the companies like you were kind of alluding to, right? A lot of companies are trying to say they use AI, and most of them will go and get a subscription to something and give all their employees, whether it's Copilot, from Microsoft, or Claude, from Anthropic, and give them the tools, but never give them any idea on how they should use the tools. There's no real application or instruction on how that can actually help them with their daily activities and how they do work. And I think that's the biggest flaw right now, because for quick wins and quick adaptation of AI, you can't just give them a tool, give your employees a tool and say, now go forth and create and do things. They have no idea how they can use it. The quick win is now looking at the industries that you're in, right? Giving them some instructions on how to build or use it in their daily life, in their daily work stream. It's what I were kind of referring to before, teaching them to audit their own tasks instead of relying on the business to come in and take away responsibilities from them. That's the quick win with AI. And a lot of companies are not doing that, building of a culture for their employees so they understand how to build and use AI, right? When it comes to specific solutions, I really think it's kind of, a lot of companies are really struggling and trying to find those use cases that actually bring some sort of ROI back to the company. Right. I mean, there are examples that I've worked on with my previous employers, where we were looking at wealth management solution and how to kind of calculate and understand, what is the trends that are going on. That was a solution that came to us. We saw that was a problem. Right. But most companies aren't really getting down to that pinpoint right now.
And I think there's got to be some easy wins. Like, my in-laws are in their 70s. They've been in business for, well over 50 years, and they're in the contracting space, right? Yeah. So I think a good solution for them would be to create a language model, bring someone in to help them speed up the process to responding to bids, right? It's been helping us a lot here. Or, nonprofits, right? The nonprofits are, they're worried about funding getting sucked up this year with the new bills and the new legislation. Well, how about for responding to grants, have a learning language model that can do that, even if it's 80% right. If that saves you 80% of the time and you're responding to 50, 60, 70 grants a year, you're talking about a lot of time. So, on that vein, we have a lot of CEOs, a lot of business owners, small, medium-sized business that listen to this podcast. So if you were to speak to them directly as a small business owner, let's say 50 to 500 employees, what would you say they need to know about AI? Like, just starting today, forget, hey, it stunk in the past, there's updates, it gets released. Like, as a core value, what does a business owner really need to start the game with AI?
Well, I mean, the first thing they have to realize that the AI is changing so quickly, so they have to be kind of learn along the way and understand how they can adapt to that technology. But they also have to identify, a core solution for themselves. A lot of small, medium businesses don't require or don't even have the workforce to kind of manage something on the scale that, Microsoft infrastructure, right? That's where these things where, having Claude as a subscription service for stuff will help them adapt AI to their business, and there isn't always, it's not a silver bullet either, right? It's not something that's just going to solve all your problems. It is definitely something that you have to take and make conscious decisions on how you want to do it, how you want to use it, because it's also the fact that not every LM model can solve every problem,
Yep.
So it's there's such a variance out there in the tech, and it's changing so rapidly. You have to be very adaptable. You have to be very creative, and identifying exactly what works within your industry and where your problems are, then using and applying AI to that first. I always think that you really should start with the people and then understanding the processes that you're doing, and then applying the technology. A lot of companies just want to shove technology at it without doing those first two parts.
Yeah, we see that all the time, and it's kind of interesting because it's a natural evolution for us, right? We have an automation team, so we've been doing, automation. We used to call it AI automation. We weren't doing AI 10 years ago, clearly, but it felt like it, with the way we do updating, the way we can apply software patches and just do different things, and it's really changed the business. And I just think, our automation with AI, properly trained AI, let's go with that, is really going to be a good steroid injection shot there. But we talked to the SMBs, so I'm going to go a couple generations down now. So now we talk to the small business owners. What would you say to that junior or senior in college where they're like, oh, you just said it's too late for me, right? I started school 4 years ago. I'm gonna walk, this year. I got a bookkeeping or accounting degree, which could be easily replaceable. Or maybe, hey, I'm a graphic design video wizard now. Super Grok is doing all this. What do you say to these college kids that are ready to go and their worlds are a little bit shaken, right? Maybe they're coming out with some student debt. They're seeing the layoffs. They're seeing the automation, right? Jack Dorsey's company laid off a bunch of staff, and what happened to the stock price? It shot through the roof. So what would you say to the later year college students?
I think there are several skills that as you're getting out of the University of College, right, did you need to really focus on, right? And I'm kind of really I kind of attested to it before, where I was saying, adaptability. Not only do businesses have to be adaptable, but I think you as an employee need to build the skill of adaptability, right? Being able to see the situation that's out there. But that leads into the next piece of the skill of being a lifelong learner, right? This technology is moving so quickly. Pick up the technology that's out there, whether it's a free subscription or a paid subscription to one of these major platforms that are out there. Figure out exactly how it can work for you. Because when you're going into a job, they're looking for people who are critical thinkers, right? They're looking for people who are, creative, who understand the technology now. Now, they're at a disadvantage because I think, now universities are really looking and thinking how they can apply AI, or at least provide courses for students, that incorporate AI in every track of their education, and, those students who are juniors and seniors, like you're saying, they're not going to be able to take advantage of those courses unless they go backtrack and, take it on, independently, or find something on their own. So focus on those skills of being adaptable, being a learner. This, like I said, this technology is rapidly moving, and it's constantly changing. And it's up to you to figure out how you can use it for your, focus, out of education. But also think about where your skills and what you've learned can be applied to in other areas. If you're in education and you're thinking maybe you're a school teacher, maybe think about it from a sense of education for corporations. Be adaptable.
Well, it's funny you say that.
Yeah.
So two things. So I did a speech. I was part of a panel actually at Rowan University here in South Jersey. And one of the topics that's coming up is a lot of the colleges. Rowan's not doing it yet.
Yeah.
They move pretty fast, though. I'm sure they will be. With every major, they're now offering a minor in AI to use with your major. But the interesting thing is, one of the professors at Rowan, what they actually do is they take their whole curriculum for this semester's class, textbook, quizzes, you name it. They load it into a model, and the students now can. And I'm joking around, I'm like, well, you're kind of putting yourself out of a job at this point, because the AI and the student can now interact to prep for tests. The AI could tell them, areas where they need to focus more, where maybe they're not getting the right answers. So, just kind of interesting there. So let's go down to one last generation. So you have a 10-year-old son. We talked about my daughter's 9 and 11.
Right.
We're going to save this, obviously, because the internet is forever. So what would you tell your 10-year-old son now? And what's our kids' lives going to look like when they're 20, 9 or 10 years from now?
God only knows. I mean, I think that's I kind of alluded to it before. That's one of my fears is when he's ready to jump into the workforce, what is going to be available?
Right.
Right. Who knows if we've 10 years down the line, we've automated ourselves out of majority of our work. Right. Who knows?
Yep.
Right. I mean, I think it comes down to, and you're not seeing this in schools yet, but if you think back when we were kids, we had typewriting courses. And then later in the generations, it was typing on computers and some stuff. And now,
don't forget those TI calculators.
Oh my God!
Teachers would say you'll never have one in your pocket. You're gonna have to know everything with your brain. And real fast, I mentioned brain, right?
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I'm concerned about, right? Like I love going to the gym, work out 4 or 5 days a week, and that makes my muscles strong. I feel like thinking and solving problems makes my brain strong. So I also wonder, like, I want to teach my kids at a young age how to use AI.
Yeah.
But I also want them to learn in a more traditional way so that their brain develops, they learn critical thinking skills. So I hope that AI is an enhancement to their brain and not their brain. What do you think with the kids on AI with that? Like, I mean, do you think it's going to lower IQ if they just use AI, if they not learn in a traditional sense, we'll call it?
I think there's a pro and a con to it, right? I agree with you. It's like any skill, if you're not using that skill, your brain is not focused on it and it's not strong when you kind of try to rely on it again. Right.
Yep.
And if you're always relying on AI for the answer, especially for critical thinking, or research or, making choices, in whatever you're using AI for, I do think that that's going to take away a lot of that building of synapses for those skills in kids. I've debated, I've talked with my wife and my son about this too, is like, I wanted to sit down and show them how to use AI and how to use it responsibly. But you're right. I think that, someone who uses it to build solutions, to problems I have, but also for companies that are clients of mine, it's different than him just relying on it wholeheartedly to get, it's like the easy button from Staples. Everybody's just going to assume that it's just going to have all the answers, and it's not, and it has a ton of information, but the problem with AI, especially now, is, these kids are using it and they could say, something to it where they think it's a great idea, and it will reaffirm that.
Yep.
Without thinking of whether or not it is a good idea or a bad idea. Right. I really do feel though that when it comes to teaching our kids how to use it, they need to understand the technology, because like I was alluding to before, while we had the typewriting stuff, and then later on now they're doing the coding in school, right? I think education systems at that level for high school, middle school, elementary are probably going to start looking at using AI for, research. They're going to give them the classes to be able to do it. Instead of us doing a Dewey Decimal System, they're going to have, AI for their research for their projects.
Wasted too much time learning that, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, think about it. Think about it this way too. It's like there's been a lot of things with education where students have used AI to write parts of their entire like papers and
Yeah.
essays and stuff like that. Um, that is a for those kids who thought of that, right, and were using it to do it, they were thinking ahead.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are thinking, adapting to the new technology. They're the ones that are learning the technology to move forward. And I guarantee those are the ones that are probably going to be the critical thinkers that will succeed in life, because they're not trying to skirt the system. They're just using it and figuring out how to do something outside the box when no one was prepared for it. But back to that education piece, and using that muscle, if you're constantly allowing someone to write something for you, you're not learning, right? You're not learning how to research. You're not learning how to do the math. You're not learning how to speak intelligently to people, by writing an email, right? It's great for examples, but there's that fine line of
Yep.
of where you want your kids to go and learn, and those skills, compared to it becoming a crutch.
Yep. I'll give you a funny one real fast. 20 years ago, or whatever, a little longer than that, but we'll say 20 years ago. It definitely was longer.
Right.
When I was in college, the original AI was a company called The Paper Store. And I only remember it because kids that didn't want to write their essays, you could call them and like pay an extra amount and have something custom. Well, I forget what college it was, one of my friends or whatever, but a bunch of them went to the paper store and they didn't really have any cash. So they bought a pre-written like essay. Well, they
Right.
all turned it in and got busted. So
Right. Yeah.
well, let's do
remember
this
these.
though. We talked a lot about AI and good stuff, terrifying stuff. Let's have a little fun. We'll do a couple speed questions here before we close up. So, business hero. Who's your business hero?
I don't know if I really can put one to. I'll say Walt Disney, because I think he actually took something that was really creative, and an idea, and built it into that empire. Of
Excellent.
yeah.
I
mean,
got to tell
they
you,
own
you're the
everything
first to
nowadays.
say,
Yeah.
yes, you do. You're the first one to say Walt Disney. We get a lot of Elon Musk over the podcast. So it's kind of funny on an AI podcast. You're going with the most non-AI, which is great because look, the guy created an empire. And for a full disclosure, we are DVC members. So I got 39 years left to hang with the mouse. How about best advice you've ever received from someone?
I'll be honest with you. I think really it is just to be yourself, and especially in business, when you are in a situation, I think it's good to be honest with your responses on how you want to be. I feel a lot of people in our industry, in any industry, will readapt themselves to what they think the expectation is, and we kind of lose ourselves in that sense. So the biggest thing, when I started working, 28, 30 years ago, was be yourself, be true to yourself. It is okay to think outside the box and speak up in the way you are, especially in a work environment. So
I like that. How about we talk a lot of tech here.
Sure.
If you weren't in tech, you have a gun to your head, you got to choose a different industry. What are you doing? What would your career be?
That's easy. That's super easy. During COVID, I've always wanted to write. So I actually wrote 3 books, and
wow.
2 picture books and a middle grade novel in a science fantasy steampunk universe. One of my goals is when I do retire, I'm going to focus 100% on an author career in sci-fi and fantasy. Yeah. That was easy for me.
I was supposed to make you struggle with that one.
I had that plan for years. Yeah. I'm ready to rock and roll,
So, okay, last one for rapid fire. What's a quote you live by?
Have you ever read the book Dune?
I have not.
So one of the quotes in there is "Fear is the mind killer," and I feel like a lot of times when we're in either a business situation or a personal situation, we let fear overcome, what we would actually do in that situation, and it makes us hesitant to jump in and take that risk because it gets in our way. So definitely, fear is the mind killer. Don't let that be the thing that stops you from doing the thing you want to do. Figure out the way to kind of overcome that, and then make those advancements and whatever it was going to stop you, to do. So
That's a good one. It's funny. That relates to a quote that I saw literally earlier today. So Tom Brady had a quote. Someone was talking about achieving success and how do you do it? And he's like, listen, you got to be like a bird, right? The bird flies to the branch. The bird's not worried if the branch is going to break because the bird believes in himself or herself, right? If that branch breaks, that bird's just going to fly. And he said, you got to really attack things like that. So great quote. So how about this? With all business leaders, entrepreneurs, college folks, we got a whole mix of people listening to this. What's your final thought on AI, the future? How do you think these folks can be intentional if you had to sum it up in, let's say, 30 seconds or less?
How can they be intentional? Are you talking about
just focusing on AI? Just what can a person or an individual do to say, hey, you know what? In 6 months from now, whether I have programming experience, no programming experience, I'm a noob. I'm a new person in AI.
Sure.
What can I do to get better? And how do I intentionally set a schedule for myself or do something to really learn about AI? And obviously, it's continuous, right? You don't go to the gym and work out once and get buff.
It would be nice.
It would be nice.
Yeah. I think I alluded to it before as far as like the lifelong learning in this. And I think that really what it comes down to. It's keeping up with the things that are going on in the technology and understanding how it applies to you, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your education and whatnot. This technology is definitely not going anywhere. Even if there is a bubble that bursts with us over in the next 10 years or so, which I don't think there will be, it's definitely about taking a creative approach on how you use the technology and making it work for you. It's not just the people who are, knee deep into it like I am. It is going to be throughout our culture and our life, from self-driving cars to hopefully not automated chefs. I think that's one industry I hope the AI stays away from.
Elon already got them cooking, so.
Oh my God, I know, but still, it's scary. I would rather go to
I was watching Hands 2 crack the eggs, which was showing the precision. So
yeah, but
like to add to that, what I always tell people, everyone pays all this money for education, which is important, obviously, but we're learning in a different way now. We have YouTube, we have podcasts. You have the World Wide Web where you could read. You have books. So I mean, it is lifelong learning, and I do think you do have to be intentional about it. My tip would always be, look, just spend 10 or 15 minutes a day at least playing with it, right?
Yeah.
Even if you don't get anything done meaningful, one, it's keeping it on your radar, and two, guess what? Over time, that 10 or 15 minutes is going to pique your curiosity. It's going to add up. It's going to build over time, and so I think that's a really good way to wrap up here. So Ted, we'll share if you're kind enough to email us links to the books. We'll put them so our listeners, if they want to read some of your writing. And for everyone tuned in today, one, I want to thank you again, for spending your precious time with us, sharing your knowledge.
Of course. Thank you.
And yeah, I think it's just a great topic. Like I said, it's a topic that's not going away, and we're going to continue to produce quality content for all the viewers and listeners out there. And we hope you tune in again to Built to Scale with me, Anthony Mongeluzo, and we'll be in touch again real soon.